Yeah, so this is a little patch that I just finished up here last week. We worked this unit last year, but this little piece of ground here needed a spur, dirt spur, so Mike and I put it in. About 6 stations, knocked it out in a day. And, so now I'm cutting it, or this video shows me cutting it. So I've been thinking more about kind of what I do and running the buncher, and I think I kind of like the idea of explaining some of the, I guess, techniques that I've picked up over the years, and just explaining them again for somebody who might watch one of these videos, maybe a young guy or young gal for that matter, and say, that looks pretty cool, I'd like to do that. And we certainly need new blood in the industry, so I'm hopeful that maybe some of these ideas that I mentioned might be useful to somebody in that way. So this is an interesting patch. There was young wood and there was some big older wood, kind of rough. Some nice fir, quite a lot of hardwood too. And kind of interesting ground. There was some decent ground, then some steep pitches, a couple small draws. And it made for interesting cutting. Best of all, it's green. There's nothing like green wood, I'll tell you what, after 10 months of salvage. Yeah, so I just faced up 4 or 5 of those big firs, and I think one of the things I think is really important in running a buncher, I know this from being an operator, but I also I've had employees and I've done management or working with guys, helping guys running bunchers, and one of the key things for longevity and production is to not stress the machine. And a lot of what I do is to minimize the stress on the buncher. So oftentimes I'll face a small tree, just in case. So I know I'll be able to take it off the stump if it's a little bit questionable. And being in the right position for the tree is also a really good idea too, in case something goes haywire. The thing to do is to let it go. If there's a situation where it's a question between the buncher and the tree's going to win. It's just got the leverage over the machine. So in bigger wood, or even reasonable wood on tough ground where you're kind of maxed out because of the terrain, making sure you're in a good position with the machine before you cut the tree really makes it easier on the buncher. So a lot of this stuff is kind of common sense, and I know there are a lot of really good buncher operators out there that do this every day, and so I'm certainly not trying to say like I know it all or anything. I'm just offering some suggestions. So one of the things if you're on steep ground, that I've found is, you know, when you cut a tree, it's the beauty of a hot saw. The tree is well balanced right where it stands, so there's a little bit of time before gravity takes over and it starts to go. So with hot saw, after you unhook it, you've got a window of opportunity to start that direction, and you can see that if there's a little bit of an angle on the ground that I'm on, I put a little bit of kind of persuasion, a little bit of angle on the head in the direction I'm going to go. So that just helps you when you unhook the tree. The head, the clamps, will give it that little bit of direction, and oftentimes that will really help you out. It's particularly if it's a tree where you're going to work hard to get it down. You can kind of see, again, I'm working across this hill, kind of in lead with the ground. I've got a strip going, and that just makes it so much easier for you to try to, you know, open up a strip and work a unit, so you're basically throwing a quarter turn. Ideally, you can't do that all the time, of course, but minimizing the amount of swing you have really helps you, and helps the machine too. Another thing that I find helpful on somewhat steep ground and the appropriate wood, I often angle my head in lead with the grade of the hill. So you put kind of an angled cut on the butt of the tree that you're cutting, but you cut a low stump, and you don't have to trim it. You don't have a high side that you have to come back and trim up. And this white fir here is, I'm just putting a little bit of a face in it. As I said, you know, I can make a low stump. I know I'm going to take it off. It's a pretty good sized stick. Of course, white fir is heavy too. I like to clean out behind myself if I got a tree that I've got a question about, or it's just big or in a tough situation. I try to give myself every advantage. If something does go wrong, I can just give it a push and it'll go basically in the right direction. That's helped me out more than once, for sure. Of course, releasing a tree too is a real important part of the bunching process. That really adds tremendous stress to the head if you hold on that shock load, or worse yet, I mean, shocking your tool cylinder. Eventually you'll pull the cylinder or the piston right out. So that nice, gentle, easy motion of just cutting and releasing when it's aimed in the right, when you got it where you go, you just let go. Now I've worked my way back up to these larger trees that I faced early on. So the way these grew, they're kind of on the break of a hill, and they were really heavily limb loaded to the southeast. They were chasing that sunlight. And so you'll see, this is something I've been doing for quite a while on trees like this. When I face them, I might even face them a little bit higher than what I normally would. And if it's a tree that I'm going to basically directionally fall, when I come in for the back cut, I'll cut a little bit low on the stump. And that basically creates a step. You'll see it on some of these. So again, if something goes haywire, basically that step will give me something to push against. So you can push with the top of your tower and the tree will hang up on that step and you'll send it in the direction that you want. So there you can see that right there. And double cutting can be quite stressful on a head. But if you do it right, you aren't stressing your components. And I think you can see that on some of these, I'll make the cut, the tree is severed, then I'll back the disc out and retain the pressure on the tree with the tower at the top, and it's just giving it a push. So that's worked well for me. Again, I guess I just kind of like to I'd rather be safe than sorry. Big trees, there's a lot of power in them. Yeah, this unit had some pretty good sized hardwood too. And in this country, you start picking up a little bit of white oak, Oregon white oak. And that's a nice tree. I really like oak in general. And I like the way it smells. But they have a tendency, especially on ground like this, they'll grow heavily towards the sun, and they can really lean down the hill. And so you see a little later, I actually cleared out lower down the hill for them, and then sent them down the hill. There's just nothing you can do. They're big trees. They were growing, about a 30-degree angle down the hill. That's the way they were going. Yeah, this is another thing here. This is big leaf maple, and they have a tendency to grow in multiples. They can be quite a pain in the neck to cut, but I like to take them apart as best I can. You can, in a multiple stem, you can cut them where you can see that they're not a single tree, and if you get the right direction on it, you can just cut the one and feel it loosen, and then take that away. Again, that really avoids putting stress on your head, and you just basically breaking the tree up into smaller pieces that you can handle easily, and also save out. Maple's quite brittle, as we all know, or at least out here on the West Coast it is. And if you just unhook it, you can break it up. Yeah, another reason I like to set myself up when I'm felling on difficult terrain or fairly good sized wood. I like to face it up. If there's a question on whether I'm going to be able to take it off the stump, and also getting behind it. So, if you happen to stall your saw or something goes haywire, you can give it a push and at least send it in the right direction. Yeah, that's that big oak. Yeah, so anyhow, a couple more white firs, getting close to being done on this patch. So. Anyhow, I hope you enjoy it. Thanks again to my wife for putting these together for us. Thanks for watching, and be safe.